So there, man. We got my cousin here, baby. Abel. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming to the show. I appreciate you. You know,
Appreciate you, man. Thank you for having me.
you know, I've been waiting for this one, of course. I've been waiting for this one, baby. We got AC Shots in the building, baby. What's up, AC?
What's up? What's up? What's up? I'm back.
good.
I'm back.
Yeah, he's back. You could tell by the camera angles and edits that he's back. Yeah, man, because when I'm doing it, it's like, all right, it comes out, okay, I'm getting guidance via phone.
Yeah.
But when he's here, you could tell, baby. AC Shots in the building. Welcome to the Dad's Group Chat Podcast. I am the host. They call me G. I'm accompanied by my cousin. He's in real estate. He's going to be one of the real estate moguls soon. You know, welcome.
Thank you,
Yeah.
man. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
It's funny, as we were setting up, I was thinking about, I was talking to Andy the last time I did a podcast, like
Yeah.
an actual like interview podcast was my birthday, 2020.
Oh,
And then before that, we used to record. I was living with my now wife, fiance at the time,
yeah.
in a studio apartment, old ass AC, crazy loud. The AC was like the size of this like fireplace, mad loud.
Man.
And it was so loud that I had to turn it off, and it was blazing hot that day.
Yo.
So it was August, recording a podcast, hot ass studio apartment.
Sweaty
I had
pod.
I had ice packs. I put ice packs behind my back just to like keep me from like I'm bald headed, so like to
Right.
keep me from glistening on camera. I had to do it, but this is dope. This is a dope setup here, man. I appreciate you
Man,
having
listen,
me.
we tried, man. We're trying. We're definitely trying. Every time I look at this, I try to level it up a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, coming from the essence of this, where we just had an idea, to now I turned the garage into like the man cave, the G cave, the pod cave, right? So it was like, it's a process. It's a lot of money involved, of course. It's an investment. But when you're passionate about an idea that you have, you got to follow through. And it may take some time, but every time something big happens, like you take a big step, like this is me realizing every time I take a big step forward, like when I started this process, I'm like, okay, God's timing is never wrong because it lasted this long because I needed to wait. I needed to learn a little bit. I needed to like expand my mentality on the view, on the vision.
Right.
So then I could get it to this level. So yeah, we're just getting started.
That's dope.
You know, this is the man cave, whatever, the pod cave. It's slowly turning into like, I'm gonna live here. I'm gonna live here soon. So yeah, man, you know, I appreciate you for coming. I appreciate your support. Both you and AC Shots always, you know, encourage me and give me ideas and feedback and, you know, giving me pointers. And I take all that in. It may take some time for me to develop the next plan, but it's going to happen because
course.
I'm a big follow-up guy.
Yeah.
I'm a follow through. So yeah, man. But yeah, man, listen, I know you're in real estate.
Yeah.
I know you're passionate about that. What got you into real estate? Because I want to deep dive into this.
Yeah. I probably have like 4 or 5 answers, man. A bunch of them come to mind, like working at a job, a 9-to-5 job, where as time goes on, you start to think like, yo, nobody's ever gonna pay me what I'm worth, ever.
That's very true.
Going through that, right? Like experiencing a job where, and I think we could all like look at any job that we've had and be like, I don't like this, I don't like that.
Right.
But I realized like, yo, some of the people that I was working with, this was their whole adulthood was in this building. And there was one turning point for me. For anybody who's familiar, right? Like New York City has something called MCU, Municipal Credit Union.
Yes.
So a lot of like city employees, I used to work for the city of New York. A lot of city employees have a credit union or go to that specific credit union.
Right.
So after me and my wife got married, and I was already into real estate, and I'll get into like how that started. But one
Right.
of the turning points, once I got started, was after we came back from our honeymoon. We went to open up a mutual or a joint account at MCU, bro. And I see somebody that I worked with at the hospital walking in like, dude, he looked like he was on his last life.
Yo.
And he still had like two more weeks or something until he reached his retirement. He's excited, and I'm sitting there talking to him. I'm like, you know, I'm happy for you. What are you gonna do? And I don't even remember the answer, but I do remember thinking like, damn, man, like, I hope he gets to enjoy a lot of it. But physically, the dude looked broken down, and nothing like, dude, old age is gonna hit all of us, right? But I just thought
Right.
to myself, I got to do something. So before that, like what ended up getting one of the things that got me into real estate, aside from like necessity and looking at my situation, I'm like, this wasn't for me. Like I didn't want to do this long term.
Right.
I started my job probably like a couple weeks in, and they started to like talk about the tier, like your retirement tier, like tier
Yeah.
3, tier 4, whatever, and all of them mean something different. Meaning you have to be a certain age, you have to work a certain number of years before
Yep.
you can retire. So I did the math. I'm like, okay, so I have to work here for 31 years,
Wow.
and then I'm not a big math guy, but I like to run numbers.
Yeah.
My first raise at the job was an 11% raise, which sounds good, but it was spanned over 7 years.
Oh. So you waited 7 years for that 11.
I mean, I had just gotten into the city job.
Okay.
But it was, for some people, it was like retro, whatever.
Got it,
Like
got
they went
it.
back.
Still
But
have
I'm
to
like,
wait
I'm
for
doing math. I'm like, all right, 11% over 7 years. That's like less than 1.5%.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
Right.
Yeah.
And what's inflation right now? Inflation
Oh,
is
come
what,
on.
4 or 5% or
Yes.
whatever the case is.
Yes.
I know they're trying to bring it down to like closer to 2%, which
Yeah.
is why they're raising interest rates right now. But I looked at that, and I was even thinking about CPI or consumer price index or inflation. I didn't even know those terms back then, but I am thinking like, yo, do I want a 1.5% raise every year for the next 30 years?
No
Fuck
way.
that.
No
Hell
way. No way. It's crazy because you mentioned a good point there, and I went immediately back to like me looking on Instagram one day, right? And you see these elder people, right? Like older people speaking about life, and what they would tell the younger people, and it always revolves follow your passion, right? It always revolves, don't beat yourself up too much, strategize. Look for other ways to match your lifestyle with your passion, right? I get it. Money's a necessity, right? But if you could find a way to be happy, like you said, you just saw that guy in the hospital, right? And we're all going to reach that level at some point where we're going to almost retire. And I look at that now and I'm like, yo, I need to do something now. Just like you did, of course. Like I need to do something now to kind of like switch this path and find a path that's more related to my passion. That's I'll be able to make a living of, but enjoy the entire process, because it's true. We live to work, and then that retirement gap is like super short, and it's crazy that it's that way, but unfortunately it is.
Yeah, like we work 20, 25, 30 years to then enjoy whatever's left at that age.
Yeah. And
God willing, with good health and everything,
Exactly.
like anything's possible. Like
I was gonna say, yeah.
Andy was telling me about somebody he just met at a photo shoot.
Yeah.
Woman was like 85 years old, mad cool and everything like that. So you can be lively and vibrant for a long time, but
Right.
what does retirement look like to you? And I never really thought about that until I started working at the city, until my dad passed away too. Like that,
Right.
that opens your eyes, because you're like, all right, can't take life for granted.
Right.
And nobody's gonna live here forever, right? So
Right.
what do you want to do while you're here? And even still, like it took me a long time to determine, if I had a purpose, if I needed one, what is it?
You know what's crazy? Yesterday I recorded a podcast with some ladies, and we was talking about the boomers versus us and how we parent, right? But one thing that stood out from that I could bring on this podcast is that, the boomers, our parents, their mentality was come and work, right? Work, and then they instilled those values into us. Yeah. We now have to take that experience, right? And, mix it with today's time, of course, with our knowledge now, and allow our younger kids to kind of like flourish in a different path, not just work, and then retire.
Not just work hard, but like
Right.
work smart too.
This is where we have to make the change so they could be able to flourish in their future, of course. So yeah, just wanted to bring that up. But yeah, you were mentioning you was exiting out of that job, and then you took the path of real estate. So I guess you were leading up to saying everything that was transpiring in that moment in your head.
Yeah. So, and you brought something up earlier. You were talking about like God's timing being on point.
Yeah.
You know, God, I believe God's timing is perfect. And after college, I graduated 2008. I stopped, like, even in college, like I wasn't like a hardcore study person. I graduated like close to a 4.0, but it was like not doing the bare minimum, but I wasn't like a cram session kind of like college student. I knew my stuff and I stayed somewhat sharp, and then I would study when I needed to, and I did well in some classes and stuff like that. But after college, and not just college, high school too, I feel like I kind of coasted for the most part. So I never like really thought after college, like, I'm going to be reading stuff. I'm going to be learning more things. I'm like, yo, I'm just going to get a job and work.
Yeah.
I got very complacent. And I had a couple of people in my life, including a coworker that I would see every day, just constantly waving a book in my face. It was a book by Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Oh, I love that book. I love that book. Yeah. I want to reread that book because I feel like at this point in my life, that book will mean something different from the 15 years ago when I read it 15 years ago. Yeah. It's like I've matured a lot since. Yeah. So when you tap into those things, you take a different, like, it shows you a different point of view.
It does.
Because of course you was thinking about other things when you read it. So it's always good to revisit books like that because that book is very important.
I agree.
Very important.
You know what's so crazy about what you just said?
Yeah.
The guy who's waving the book in front of my face at work told me, read it now and then read it again when you're about to have your first kid.
Yo.
How crazy is that?
Yo,
you just said that. I'm like, yo. And I thought about it. I'm like, yeah, I guess, all right, whatever. Let me read it. As I'm reading it, I'm like, I know why he said that.
It is insane. It is insane. It's true. It's true. You know, you have to visit things that mean something to you in the past. And even like we're in present day, but we have to revisit that book at some point in the future again.
Yep. Constantly.
Because our kids have to be knowledgeable in those situations, especially involving finances and how that plays a part and how that matters in society and all that good stuff.
And not just that book, he wrote two other, I only read, I've heard of 3 of his other books. I think I read like 2 of them. One of them is like a book on tax strategies, which that stuff to me was that was another language. And then there's a book I haven't read, Cash Flow Quadrant, by the same author. I heard is really, really good. And then another one I read on network marketing, that was good too. But that was years later. But just back to the book. Once I finally like sat down to read it, I'm like, it makes sense.
Right.
He talks about I think there's like 4 different like stages to like entrepreneurship. Like you're an employee, you're a business owner, you're whatever, you're an entrepreneur. There's like different tiers. The top tier is where you just kind of like, you're like a passive investor. You're an investor.
Right.
But all you invest really is your money. You don't invest much time because there are people who are either hired directly by you or hired by an investment firm or whatever the case is to handle day to day. And I started to think about that, and bro, like that's the ideal retirement right there.
That is.
To throw your money around, and then somebody is managing the money, managing the people that operate a business that make money. And real estate, to be honest, real estate sales is not like that passive type of business.
Right. As it seems to be by most of us. It from the outside looking in, it does seem like.
Yeah. And it could be. Don't get me wrong. Like the margins aren't terrible. I'm not at that level. Okay. But I know there are people who just own a brokerage, right? And they just pay the bills, right?
Right.
And then
of course.
They have managers, they have brokers, whatever, just different positions that kind of manage the day to day.
Right.
I didn't think about that when I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. I thought more about like just literally any other business. Like let's say a restaurant business, bad example because that's a difficult business. But eventually, like if you own a group of restaurants and you don't manage any of them, you don't spend time there, right?
Right.
So I thought about like businesses like that, you know. But yeah, that was a huge turning point for me. Like reading that, I was like every day I read that and I had to sit at work.
Yo,
I'm like,
it's a game changer, eye opener for real. Yeah. You know, I admire people like yourself, like AC Shots. You guys just took that risk at a very young age. You just said, you know what, I'm gonna take a different path, and I'm gonna learn it. I'm gonna improve. I'm gonna develop. Eventually, you want to look back and say, I've accomplished a lot, and not beat yourself up throughout the process.
We do that during the process, but when we get there, we'll probably be like, why was I overreacting?
Yeah, but look, what I'm getting to is, and it's important to notice this, right? Because you gotta stop and realize what you've accomplished so far. Whether it's in business, whether it's in your own maturity, your relationships, significant others, being a parent, like you got to stop and say, give yourself some grace, pat yourself on the back and say, yes, this journey is tough, but I've accomplished X, Y, and Z. And that's important. So I just wanted to really give you guys props, you and AC Shots, because you guys have, you guys thought about that. And I'm pretty sure it was scary at the moment you guys took that left turn and said, you know what, I'm going to drop everything and take on my passion for real. And that's what I'm trying to do here.
Yeah.
I'm trying
that's what you're doing.
Well, I guess, right? I got to pat myself on the back,
language is powerful, bro. Like, yeah, actually.
So yeah, I'm gonna definitely put it out there. I am definitely doing that, and I'm in the process, and I'm beating myself up, and it's like it's a lot of emotions. But every time I look back, bro, like we just said, like when we started this whole podcast situation to where it is now, it's like, okay, I could see the improvements throughout the years. So that's very important, bro.
Yeah.
It's kind of like going back to what your Abel was saying earlier and what you just said right now.
Yeah.
That, it's scary, leaving the job and whatnot. But like for me, I used to do delivery.
Right.
I used to wake up at 5:30 in the morning. I used to get home 4, 5, 6,
Yeah.
and, beating my body up, whatnot. And don't get me wrong, like this time now that I'm doing this photography thing,
Yeah.
I'm putting in a lot of hours. But sometimes I am editing at home. I'm at home. I see my kids. I see my wife. Or, you put in the long hours. You could work from home, Abel. You could work from home if you're doing this. You're editing,
Right.
You're coming from work to work, which I used to do that
Oh shit.
in the beginning. You used to do that, when you used to do part-time
Yeah.
in real estate and then in full-time in your other job.
Right. Right.
But the beauty of it is you could be at home with your family, even if you put in those long hours. If you're sleeping less,
And that's
so you go to sleep at 1 a.m, 2 a.m, editing or whatever to wake up, at 5, 6, whatever it is.
And that's important. That's important to note because you get that flexibility. So yeah, it's important to notice that, you're doing it for a reason, and it's incredible because you do have your kids with you. You're home, you're working, and then you come home to work on your passion, but it's all important. It's all relative. It's all necessary. That's what I'm getting to.
And they're watching too. Like they see what you're doing. We don't think of it because we just do it on autopilot. But they see whatever it is that we do, good or bad.
Yeah.
You know, like kids. My daughter's 3, so not long ago she started picking things up. Where like it mainly started watching baseball. I started watching baseball again.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I ever like cursed in front of her.
Yo.
I was just saying shit. But for little things, it wasn't even like a big deal. Sometimes I wasn't even watching a team that I liked. I'm just watching it as a fan of the sport.
Yeah.
And she was picking up on it. So they watch everything we do, good or bad. The good thing on the hustle side, just like on working hard and being on top of our stuff and trying to build and plan things out for the future. Like I think eventually they all start to notice that.
Yeah. Yeah. And they start to see the entrepreneurship. They start to see the different path that you took. They may not notice it, like you said. They don't know what's really happening.
They know you're doing something.
But they know you're building something.
It's funny too because I have a million shirts that says AC Shots, right?
Right.
So the person that made the shirts for me made one for Matthew. Matthew's 2 years old.
Yeah.
And then I show him. I was about to put it on, and then he points at the logo. And he's like, "Daddy,
Look at
Daddy,"
that.
like, "Damn, like you're 2 years old. Like how
You see?
do you know?" But they're watching.
Yo, they are watching for real, for real. And it's crazy because in my mind, so taking it back, right? In my mind, this whole podcast setup, right? When I was developing it, when we was developing it, it was like, it was an idea, us to get on the chat, talk, create, whatever. But in my mind, the reality was, I want to get my daughters into entrepreneurship early. And I want them to have something that I've built and I could pass on. Yeah. I'm pretty sure like our parents built on their end and they passed to us. And it's important because I'm always, in those moments when I'm thinking like that, I always go back to like when my dad, he used to, ¿cómo se dice planchador?
Iron.
He used to work at the cleaners as the guy who ironed
pressing,
clothes.
like French pressing.
Right. He did that for like 25 years.
Wow.
Right. Of course, there's no pension or retirement or any of that involved in those type of jobs. But I remember one time I went up to him and I told him, I want to be just like you. And he's like, you can't. I'm never going to give you an iron. I'm never going to pass down an iron to you. You're going to be better than me. You're going to do other things. And that shit stays in my head. Yeah. Like, this was, I'm not going to lie, this might have been when I was like 9, 10. And it always plays in my head. When my daughter was born, it played in my head. When my second daughter was born, it played in my head. And it's like, I got to,
just laying foundation.
Yo, listen, it's incredible.
Just laying foundation. Well, they laid, before us, the foundation was laid. It's just like, we're like improving on it, making little repairs maybe here and there.
Maintaining it,
trying to strengthen it.
Right.
Yeah.
But elevating it before we pass it on. And this goes with information, education, everything that we pass on. And this is why even us being silent and having a logo like AC Shots and his son looking at it and saying, that's daddy, yo, you must have felt incredible that day.
Of course.
See? That's good. So speaking of kids, right? Yeah. How are the kids?
Good, man. 3 and soon to be 9 months.
Okay.
The other one, the little one.
Yeah. You want some more?
Little big one. Yeah.
Maybe not. Maybe yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure AC Shots is done.
Don't even ask over here.
I'm happy about that answer.
Yeah,
don't even ask over here.
Like, you push him out.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not.
I've seen it though.
I'm good with the 2.
Yeah,
I'm good with the 2 because
I think the boys.
Listen,
calling.
on every single episode, these guys are telling me, "Yo, when is the boy? When is the boy? When is the boy?" I'm like, "Yo, that's it. I'm the boy. Yeah. That's it. It's done. He had his opportunity.
Dude, got a dog.
G is the only guy in his house.
Yo,
he lives with like 15 women.
Yeah, listen. And it's crazy.
I mean, obviously you don't have anything to like compare it to because it's what you're used to is what it is. But like, let's just say you go over to somebody's house where they have like sons or something. Do you notice any like clear differences?
Oh, yeah, man. Yeah. But then it's like, God gave me girls for a reason. He knew that I could pretty much handle this situation. And it's all about, self-awareness. I learn some new things every day. If having girls calm me down, I've learned patience. I've learned, calmness, maturity. Now I see like having daughters. So it's not only my daughters, right? Because as AC Shots mentioned, I'm living with women in the house. As you can see, I have some cousins over today. More women.
She has 3 daughters.
So she has 3 daughters. So it's like I'm surrounded, right? Yeah. I have nieces. I look around and I'm the only guy, but I have to do more. That's all I see. God is telling me you need to do more. You need to see what women go through from a very young age to the oldest, of course. Yeah. And it's all a learning experience. When I'm around guys, of course, this is my cave. So I'm here like, okay, cool. This is my away from everybody. I work here. When I'm not podcasting, I work from home here. So I'm away from everybody. I have guys over here, of course. You guys are here. But I thought it'd be harder.
Yeah.
It's easy. So if another baby girl comes, I'm ready.
You mean parenthood or you mean specifically like dealing with all girls just being in it?
Well, parenthood is never easy.
Yeah.
That's a whole different other topic. But, I don't know if I gave in or now I'm like numb to it.
Yeah. God gave you a gift you didn't even know about.
No, listen. If God gave me this gift, I'm going to appreciate it. That's the way I look at it. But yeah, no more kids for you, AC Shots?
Nah.
No more kids for me either. I guess you're still thinking about it. It's all good, man. Listen, we welcome the babies.
It's a hard no if you ask my wife. It's a hard no.
Yeah, no, I understand.
But the little one's 9 months. He hasn't slept like a full night since he was born.
Oh, you see,
tough,
that's
man.
tough. In the beginning is very tough.
Yeah,
Very
yeah,
tough.
yeah.
And you know, I'm not gonna lie. Us men, at some point during those initial stages of the pregnancy or the parenthood, like your child was just born, it's either you're all hands on deck or you are to the side. And that's where women start, I believe, I'm not sure. That's when women start noticing, you know, the help that they need. So I made sure that when my first was born, I was there 100%. I'm pretty sure you guys were there as well. The second was born, I was already kind of like used to the situation. Oh no, you're not gonna sleep with me. The second one didn't get none of those treatments, right?
Yeah. You missed out. You were late.
Oh man, you missed out. Just like I tell the boy, you missed out on opportunity.
Tough luck.
Yeah, no, all those advantages that the first baby had, you're not gonna get them. I'm sorry, you're gonna get other advantages, of course. I wanted to take it off the parenting for a second and go back to real estate.
Yeah, sure.
Because I got a house during the pandemic, and I believe that was God's timing again. It was perfect timing. It was like the situation, everything is like meant to happen, right? Because the year prior, I remember I came to you. The year prior to the pandemic, I was like, yo, I'm looking for a house. And, you know, you was helping me throughout the entire process. You made me sit down. You yourself was there with the loan officer. We went over the numbers. We went over the credit. And at that time was not the time. My credit was a little bit on the needing improvement, of course. And the interest rate was super high. Well, it was normal back then.
What was high then?
Yeah.
at that
Yeah, what was-
time?
what was high?
What was it around
I don't
then?
remember, but
At 5.
it was probably like in the 4s or 5s.
5.
And then it ended up, within a year's
down.
time, it
Yeah.
ended up getting down
Do
to
what?
like 2s.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Mid-twos,
refinanced at the lowest point. The best thing.
A lot of people did.
The
Right now,
best thing.
they say that 90% of homeowners right now have an interest rate below 6.
Yo.
70% of homeowners right now have an interest rate below 4.
Oh my God.
I'm in that one. I'm
Listen.
in that category.
Listen.
Chilling. A lot of people
Mine is
took
like
advantage.
it's like 2 something. Man.
Yeah, nice.
So then now the interest rate are like what, 7?
Right now they're like in the low, depending on the day, they fluctuate every day, but
Yeah.
the highest, I think like the highest in the last 10, 12 years or something just passed like within the last 30 days. I think it went up to like 7.25, 7.5. I'm not 100% sure, but definitely in the 7s.
Yeah.
What they're saying is Goldman Sachs believes this, and a couple of other platforms are believing that Q4, the fourth quarter of this year, interest rates are going to average out at around like 6%.
Right.
So they're anticipating the rates dropping. I don't do much like speculation on that side. I mean, I pay attention to like the Fed and what they're saying. A big thing to follow is the 10-year Treasury note, because that correlates with interest rates as well.
Right.
But what the Fed wants to do is they want to raise interest rates to bring inflation down. So as you guys know, like we're paying extra everywhere.
Yeah.
At the grocery store and at the pump is what most people like automatically think about, right? And then cost of living as well. Cost of living is like one of the main factors to inflation to determine like what consumer price index is. So when cost of living goes up, inflation remains high. What they want to do is raise the interest rates so that cost of living drops.
Right.
It hasn't really helped all that much, mainly because of what I said before. 90% of people who own a property have an interest rate of 6% or less. 70% have an interest rate of 4% or lower than that. So it creates what they call a lock-in effect.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
If you don't have to move, you don't move because you have a really good interest rate. If you sell, the prices have steadily gone up. But now you have to purchase another property in this high price point market with higher interest rates. So it's creating a lock-in effect where people are like, I'm just going to sit back, enjoy my low interest rate, enjoy my equity building up year over year. So that's kind of where it's at now. Inventories remain like crazy, crazy low. And the people that are moving are typically the people that need to move for some reason, right? Either they're retiring, maybe unfortunate events, right? Like death in the family, divorce. or maybe they just want to sell their property
or downgrade.
They want to downgrade. Kids moved out of the house. They want to upgrade. They're having, their families growing, things like that.
Right.
So necessity really drives the market, and I think the rate of I don't know the number on this, but the rate of delinquencies on mortgages is actually dropping, which means that we're not really getting to that 2008, 2009 market where foreclosures are through the roof, everybody's underwater. We're not really there.
Right.
A lot of people will argue, though, that we're kind of heading there. That's anybody's guess, but history will tell us that, at some point, the market has to correct itself.
Again, right. It has to repeat. It's crazy because I believe that the pandemic kind of like shake the real estate industry. And I remember going into it the second time. Now I'm ready, right? During the pandemic, we had everything we needed. The artillery was set to go ahead and buy the house, right?
Yeah.
But it was a seller's market, right? And it was insane. Finding a house, bro, during the pandemic was crazy. It was like insane. It was like we would put an offer. As a matter of fact, we would step out of it got to the point where we stepped out of a house and like, put an offer immediately right now if we liked it. And like 3 hours later, a realtor would call and say, oh, yeah, somebody came with cash. Oh, yeah, somebody came and offered some more. Oh, yes. And so it was always something. We fell in love with 2 houses and we was like, we're not falling in love with it. We're just going to go in there, hope for the best, try to put a good offer in. And then from there, we'll see where it goes. But in this house, we saw it. We was like, okay, it has potential. Okay, it's good. You know what? Put an offer just to put it.
Yeah, vision, man.
Right, because just to put an offer, put it because we see the vision of where it could be. But we wasn't really like, okay, this is the house.
Yeah.
And we had another viewing that Monday, and he called us right back. He said, yo, listen, they accepted the offer, and let's go. And I'm like, okay, cool. And then from there, of course, it's all about the vision. Like you just said, you buy a house, and then you have to make your adjustments. You have to put your vision into play, and so far, so good.
And what you guys did was key, because in my estimation, the best property for somebody's first property is what they call a house hack. So you live in part of the property, you rent out the rest, or you have something that has like a separate living space where now the cost can be split up, and now you're paying way lower than what you would for, let's say, a single family house. I'm not a huge fan of that as like a first property, like buying a dream home or buying your forever home, because the average American sells their house or moves, I think like every 7 to 8 years or something like that, right? So what at the moment might feel like, oh, I'm going to live here forever. As time goes on, your family grows, your kids get bigger, those walls like start to shrink, right? Like they start to like come in. The benefit is, depending on the area, especially in New York, the property values can continue to go up. So you have that to your advantage.
Right.
But from like a wealth building standpoint, it's kind of a risk because you don't dictate what the market does. The market does, right? The buyers and the sellers dictate where the market goes. So even if you say, I love this school district, I love the features of this house, I know that in 10 years it's going to be worth X. Yeah, that's just you being hopeful, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to like a property that you can house hack, small multifamily or a family with what they call an ADU, an additional dwelling unit, those are the best properties to go after because now you have income potential.
Yeah.
While you live there, you're lowering your monthly costs. When you move out, you can now rent out that space or all of the spaces in the property, and rents steadily increase over time, right? So, obviously your expenses increase as well, but so do rents. That's a huge tip for landlords, by the way. I don't care how much you like your tenants, treat your property like a business.
That is true.
Your tenant can be the sweetest person in the world, bakes you a pie every freaking Saturday.
Every Saturday.
But you still got to raise the rents. You have to because your expenses go up. Con Ed isn't going to be like, you know what? You've been a nice you've been a nice consumer of energy. We'll keep your price the same. They're not going to do that, right?
It's never going to happen.
Water bill goes up, everything, right?
Everything.
So I always recommend that. I always say that. Make sure that you are putting it in. Tenants don't like to hear this, especially if you have a good rent. But for landlords, like that's the way to go.
So in today's market, do you recommend renting over purchasing a house? at this moment with inflation and all that good stuff, because rent is crazy right now as well.
Yeah.
So in my mind, I locked it in 2 years ago during the pandemic, which was insane. It all happened the way it needed to happen, right? But if I was looking for a house today,
different story.
yo, it's a different story. I would have been like, yo. But then you look at the housing market, you're like, oh no, right? But then you look at where the rent is, you're like, oh hell nah.
Yeah.
So it's like where it's either way. So I always
there's
say,
a saying in real estate, the best time to invest in real estate is today. The second best time to invest in real estate was yesterday or like last month or something
it's
like
crazy.
that.
It's crazy because it is true. I wanted to touch on a point that you made before about what was you talking about before?
Can I answer your question first though about buying and renting?
Yeah.
I think it depends on the person. It depends on their goal. Depends on the property that they're gonna buy.
Right.
Right now, to buy like a single family property, your forever home, unless it's a good deal, I don't think it's necessarily the time to buy. But again, necessity drives real estate sales and purchases. So if your family situation dictates that like you need a bigger space, there just isn't that inventory to rent that kind of space in the areas that you want, but you can't buy a property in that space.
Right.
You still have the option to buy something and then refinance when the rates drop. So you can lower your payment. Right now, comparing when you bought 2 years ago to today, the reason it's like, nah, I would probably stay renting is because your payment right now for the same property probably be like good G or 2 G's higher.
You're 100% right. You're
It's a
100%
big difference,
right.
you know?
You know, and I was going to mention about that, right? Because you mentioned something key, the dream home, right? So it's funny because when we first got in here, it was like, yes, you know, because we're first time homeowners in the family. Like, I'm pretty sure you probably felt that way too, right? Where you're like, oh my God, I made a huge, I was nervous. I'm not going to lie. All the anxieties.
Just normal,
Everything hit me once I signed those papers and once I came home, right? At that point, the amount of responsibility that we had on our shoulders was insane. I was feeling every little bit of it, right? But then you're like, you know, first time homeowners, this is the dream, this is the house. And then like we're 2 years in, right? So me and my wife will look at each other and be like, you know, we're outgrowing this house, right? So it's crazy because it's like, the girls are not going to want to do this. And then they're going to want to do that. And then we're going to need to do this. We need a bigger space in like 7 years. So it's true.
Which is good. You set yourself up for it though.
So
in a good way.
Yeah, I have to look at it that way.
If it was a single family house and then you had to, let's say, refinance to take some equity out, chances are you probably wouldn't make that money back in rental income. But if you left your space today, you'll most likely be able to rent your space for more than what your mortgage payment is.
I looked into all of that already.
Your cash flow.
Listen.
That's the goal, bro. That's what Robert Kiyosaki wrote about.
Oh, yes.
Cash flow. Cash flow's king.
Yes. I wanted to touch on something that came up on the topics that you put. Speak a little bit about E-Myth. What's that about?
So this doesn't necessarily have to do with real estate, but it has to do with business. The reason, we kind of talked about it, there was a book that I read called The E-Myth by, I think the author's name is Michael Gerber. E stands for entrepreneurial. So the book is about the entrepreneurial myth, which is people on the outside see an entrepreneur and they're like, oh shit, Andy's driving a Lambo. He's chilling. He's doing his thing. But in reality, there's so many things that happen behind the scenes that don't make the business as attractive as people on the outside might think.
It doesn't look that pretty at all.
Right?
Yeah.
So like selling sunset in real estate, or not even selling sunset, not to pick on one particular show, but let's just say reality television in general when it comes to real estate.
Right.
Like, dude, if I looked at your reel that you did of how you fixed this place up.
Listen.
In 45 seconds, it looks crazy. It looks dope.
Oh,
Hell yeah.
my God,
I would love to do that. But put somebody in the position where they got to put the time and the work in to do it. And not to say that people won't do it, but it is a lot more challenging than what it looks like. So the reason I put it there is because, we were talking about like how the pandemic changed real estate, right? The industry. On the buying and sell side, you gave us a really good illustration of that, right? Long lines at open houses.
Oh my God.
Crazy competition. You have to make a quick decision, but even when you make a quick decision, make a good offer, there's cash offers. There was a lot of competitiveness, right? Yeah. As a consumer. As a professional in the business, the same exact thing happened. Why? Because people started to see these open houses, crazy lines. They started to see that a house would go on the market for $500,000 and sell for $530 or $550, and people run the numbers. They calculate, oh, if I sold that house, that would be X amount of dollars in commission. If I sold X amount of houses, I could quit my job or whatever. You know, I can buy whatever it is that I wanted to buy. So when you run the numbers, it seems very lucrative, very attractive. But the E-Myth is a powerful book because it walks you through the life of, I think she's a baker. I think it's a woman that bakes pies, right? So the author is writing about this woman who bakes banging pies, presumably, right? From the description in the book, I'm like, damn, I could eat some pie right now.
Yeah.
Talks about how good this woman is at making pie. Her whole family loves it. Her neighbors love the pie. But what happens? She then takes that and starts to open up a bakery and realizes that baking pies is a very small part
of the overall business. Right.
So that's where the E-Myth comes into play. It's a, I don't know exactly like what the myth would be, but my interpretation of it is that it's a myth that it's all glory, sunshine and rainbows and all of that. And it's not to discourage, it's more so to encourage people because the first thing whenever you want to get into like a business or any like entrepreneurial venture, what you're doing now, you want to be married to like the process before you even think about the outcome.
Man, listen, that's why a lot of people don't succeed at what they try, because they start to see that, you know, it's too much work involved in this one particular situation or passion that I thought I had.
Mm-hmm.
Because
it's a shortcut. They're looking for that shortcut.
They're looking for the quick buck and the shortcut, like AC just mentioned.
Kind of like what he said with your video. You put your 45-second video and like, oh, it's that easy.
That'll grab people. They'll be like, oh, hell yeah, I want to start a podcast.
Listen, immediately, right? I get that all the time now. Friends and family tell me, yo, how do I? And then I throw them a book, right? Because I read 3 books on this thing. Yeah. Like I read the entrepreneurial side of the podcast. I read, you know, everything into it. I put in the time. So it's a lot, cause in the process, instead of like feeling like overwhelmed and like I couldn't do it, I actually fell in love with it. Yeah, that's dope. And it's like it's with AC with the photography. I know you love it because you dropped everything and said, you know what, I love this. Let me start doing this. So that's how I felt about the podcast. I'm like, you know what, I could do this. Mm-hmm. Like I don't know if you know, like when I was young, like when I was like what 17, 16,
reggaetonero.
Yo, whatever, right? So I started like rapping and stuff.
Bro.
No, I'm not. At some point, you're gonna get a rap from me in this podcast, but not today.
He said it.
I did say it. I already have a vision of how to do it too. I already have the vision. It's all about setting the vision, right? But you know, it's crazy because in the past, I used to be. It never amounted up to nothing, but I wanted to be a reggaetonero, right? I put a couple of songs out and stuff like that on my own. But little do you know that I was also producing those beats. Like I also had to learn that process because where do I go? I didn't know where to go. I went to a radio station with a CD back then and all that. So I'm thinking I'm doing everything right, but of course there's a slim chance that you're gonna get through that door. Yeah. But even were
there a lot of people there? Like when you went?
No,
were a lot of people doing the same thing? Or
no. It was just me. It was just me. I just went. There were a lot of people in that building. I gave it to whoever I gave it to, but
also you didn't like see a bunch of people lined up.
No. It was nothing like that.
You think she had like a drawer, or he
probably
had like a crazy drawer? Threw it like a frisbee or something.
Probably, probably they had like a drawer, you know. But what I'm getting to is, I used to love that, right? Yeah. And then I saw how that nightlife of building and being in the studio and all that good stuff all the time, I let it go. But what I didn't let go of was still making beats because I love music. I love creating. So I took that whole creating aspect of it. And I was like, you know what? At some point in life, at that point, meaning like when I was 17, 18, at some point in life, I'm going to utilize this passion in another way. And here's the pandemic. Here's the podcast. Here's this. So now I'm like, yo, I'm in love with this, just like as I was a kid. But this time, as an adult, like me knowing I'm gonna see what the process is. Like you just said, you got to marry the process. It's either I fall in love with it or I don't. And at that point, I realized this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And I fell in love with it. So back to your point, AC, and I mean, like when you saw that clip of 45 seconds of me doing this, that shit took some time.
Yeah.
To shit, the whole fucking process took a lot of time to develop that video, to have this kind of room set up and all this. And I'm not saying this is the best setup, but to me, this is a trophy. Oh, yeah. This is one of those that goes in the books. And I said, yes, you know what? You got to look back and pat yourself on the back, like I said before. So I'm pretty sure you feel like that in real estate. I'm pretty sure you feel like that in photography. But it's important to know that you got to fall in love with the process. You got to marry that. You got to go through your L's, which are learning, lessons, all those, love. You got to, it's not really a loss. Yeah. You just take that good L and you develop from there. And
it's not like natural for everybody, especially myself. Like I mentioned, I was very complacent. So I had worked for NYU for 2 years. Then I worked for the city for 8 years before I ultimately left. So like for the majority of that time, a little bit more than half of that time, I was just like very complacent. I was making decent money. I was going out every single weekend, just chilling, just hanging out all the time, and almost like living like a kid, like half of a kid, half of an adult life.
Right.
I was living an adult life because I had like my responsibility, my house, my car, my whatever, my financial responsibilities. But I didn't have kids. I wasn't married then, and like I was very like short-sighted. Mm-hmm. But I had to like shift everything about my frame of thinking. That's what like Rich Dad Poor Dad did for me too, because it talks about like how you have to shift the way you even see money and the way you see a job. You have to think about it differently so you can do something differently. Right. And to Andy's point before, he's talking about, when he had his job, when he was doing deliveries, it was hard to wake up at 5 a.m. or whatever, but we all make that decision every day. We choose our hard, right? Yeah. Either it's going to be hard waking up to work for somebody every day, or it's going to be hard waking up every day to build something of our own, taking a complete leap of faith, not knowing how it's going to work out or if it's going to work out. Yeah. But both of those decisions are hard. We get the good thing is, and that's what I love about this country, and I always give you a shout for that, like for serving our country, right? Like that's the blessing about our country. Yeah. Because we're in a place where that's the American dream. We get to create what we wanted to create. Yeah. Like, dude, my father used to deliver cars. Your father used to press shirts. Yeah. What would somebody in those professions right now be able to afford? Yeah. Right? So they like laid the groundwork at that time. They worked like crazy. They worked really hard. But the world evolves. Our country continues to evolve. So skill sets change, and we have so many free resources too, and cheap resources. Books are $15-$20, right? Yep. To be able to learn this stuff, YouTube is free. Right. To be able to learn all of that stuff,
even for the non-readers, now we have audiobooks. Yeah. So that's also something very important. Audible. Like I'm big on that. Yeah. I'm big on that. So I put the audiobook on, and I drive, I go to sleep, I work out, and I'm listening to information. And it's very important to grasp the opportunity, because you mentioned something key earlier. You have an option, and what you choose becomes your reality. So just choose wisely. Yeah. And the earlier you realize that, again, back to the point of attaching that reality to your passion, that's something that you could fall in love with. Nothing is easy. Yeah. Everywhere there's stress, regardless if it's entrepreneurship or working at a job. Yeah. So regardless of what the outcome is, you're choosing it. Yeah. So just make the wise decision of choosing wisely.
Something that really helped me was, so remember I was talking about like reprogramming my thinking in my mind. Mm-hmm. I didn't know how to do that. I just knew that I had to do it. I knew I had to like change my mindset. And it's not something that you sit down and you're like, all right, now I'm going to change the way I think about this. Like it happens gradually. So one of the ways I did it, I would take so many people's advice. I'm really grateful. Like I lived with my brother for a long time, and he was always an entrepreneur. Yeah. As old as I can remember, my brother was always an entrepreneur. So I got to see like that lifestyle, like, damn, like you get to kind of do what you want to do when you want to do it. Yeah, it's hard work when you're doing it, but you're doing it on that term. Yeah. So like, I'm really grateful. The shift for me wasn't that hard because I had already seen it and I knew it was possible. But one of the things that really helped me once I started in real estate was a video I used to listen to. It was a commencement speech by Denzel Washington. He talks about failing forward. So if you look it up on Google or on YouTube, just put Denzel Washington fail forward or something like that. But he talks about like how failing is not a bad thing as long as you're learning from it and as long as you're like committed to growing from any experience that you have.
Right.
Like take what it is that you learn and then keep taking chances because again, just going back to the decisions, we take chances regardless. Even if we're not doing shit, we're taking a chance that us staying stagnant is hopefully going to work out for us. We're still going to be able to like roll with the tide, but it doesn't happen that way.
Yeah, and then your reality becomes you stood stagnant. So, and before we get on to our next topic, right, which is sports, right, I just want to touch on one thing. And I'm pretty sure we probably feel the same way about this, but when you started your entrepreneurial path, the support that you thought you would receive and the reality of the support that you actually received, were those two in a different place? Like the reality versus what you thought the support would be?
To be honest, I didn't know what to expect. There were moments where I was like, damn, I wish I felt more support, right? And then there were other moments where I just felt overwhelmed. I think those moments outweigh the other moments because I can think of a few instances where it's like, maybe jokes here and there or whatever, like, but at the same time, like that's how we grew up. Like, half of me and AC Shot's conversations is us making fun of each other about shit that's going on now or hypothetical shit or things from 20, 30 years ago. It's just the way it is. So like, I didn't take too many things to heart, but I did feel like in hindsight, now that I'm thinking about it, I felt like overwhelming support even to this day.
Okay, that's
I'm
good.
really grateful for that. Yeah.
That's good. What about you, AC?
Man, it was rough, I think, for me in the beginning because, you would think that everyone that's close to you is going to support you. Like I know real estate is different from photography, but for me, it was like, I'm going to take photos for Christmas, like Christmas photos.
Right.
Like, why you're not hiring me? Why Abel's not hiring me? Why whoever's not hiring me?
I just don't like you. I can answer that right now.
But you have like those close people that you think like, damn, and like they're using another photographer.
Yeah.
So it's like,
yeah,
fuck.
You feel that?
but as time goes, you learn that every photographer has their own style.
Yeah.
Maybe you like more orange photos. I don't do orange photos, or more, just different styles. So and then just in the end of the day, you cannot take things to heart.
And that's my point, right? You can't take things to heart because I one of those Sundays I'm looking through Instagram, right? And there was this post that this guy said, you know what? In the beginning, people don't know what to expect of you. You haven't given them anything so they could support you. You just told them about your dream. You never applied it. I'm not going to lie. At the beginning, I felt like, I had overwhelming support on the podcast. And for some people that I thought may have wanted, that I envisioned them supporting me in some type of way, they didn't support me how I thought they would have supported me, but they supported me in their own different ways. And I appreciate that. Yeah. So now looking in hindsight, I say, you know what? It's not about a post. It's not about you reposting. It's about those conversations outside of the podcast that you're giving me advice about how to run this. Yeah. Or maybe next time you should ask this. Or you know what a good conversation is? This. Or
just acknowledging that you're doing it.
Right. So support.
Like, yo, I see you got a podcast.
Right. Support comes in many different ways. Yeah, in the beginning, I used to take that shit personal. Yeah. Now it's like, I appreciate everybody who supported me in their own ways. I got friends that are true friends of mine, that I love them and they know that I love them. But we don't connect as often, right? But those friends, they call me or they text me about the podcast. Yo, listen, it was dope. maybe this, maybe that, and I appreciate all of it. And the guy in the Instagram post that I was looking at, he was like, you can't take anything personal in the beginning. You got to put in the work. You got to let them know. You got to put it out there so they can support you.
Yeah.
And the more you put it out there, you'll see eventually they'll support you. But support doesn't come only in the way that you see it.
Yeah, that's true.
As the entrepreneur, support comes in many different ways. Yeah. So I appreciate everyone who has supported this podcast in your own ways. Posting, not posting, those conversations outside of the podcast.
Like, subscribe,
share.
What else? Comment.
Like, subscribe, share, comment.
Save.
All of that good stuff. Pass it on to another person. But the more content you put out, the more support will come. And like I said, thank you to everyone who supported. I just want to touch on one thing before we go.
Yeah.
So I know we put it on the chat. What's the hardest job in sports as a ref? Which sports would you say would that be the hardest?
The easiest is baseball. Because you just stand there. Okay. It's hard. It's hard, making the right call. Everything happens so fast. As somebody that doesn't play the sport, you see it on TV and like, they're running on normal speed. Yeah. Like us playing, when we were younger, let's say we run at 5%. But in the major leagues, that thing is on 15%, 20%, on 1,000. Everything happens
quick,
way quicker. So you need to be quick with your eyes, I get that. But I think it's easier because you're just standing there.
So what's harder?
I would say football and soccer.
You gotta pick
maybe.
One. You gotta pick one.
Even basketball, because you're technically you have to be sprinting with them, right? And then you also need to make that call. When you're running, your head is going up and down. Your eyes are going up and down while you run.
Everything, yeah.
And then you have to try to make that call.
Doing it in tuxedo pads.
So to be fair, right? I would say we're looking at this the wrong way.
Okay.
So it's crazy because yes, all of them are physical. You got to be running. You got to be looking specific. But what we should be looking at it, which is the most dangerous one, because baseball is dangerous. I'm pretty sure, they're standing there. Pero si le dan un pelotazo.
Yo, they be getting rocked. Yo, when you get that foul ball right on your neck.
Especially that
referees though in football too. Referees in football make me think of like Game of Thrones. In Game of Thrones where there's the guys that aren't fighting, they're just holding the flags. But they're right in the middle of the battle. You're like, damn, how has any of them caught one yet? The refs in football, I'm like, yo, how do they get avoided? But you'll see a couple of videos here and there, running backs accidentally knocking them over and all of that.
So would you say football is more dangerous than basketball? Not basketball. Football is more dangerous than baseball?
I think so.
Which one is
they're not padded at all. In baseball, they're padded, and then everything is, for the most part in baseball, most things are coming from the same direction or towards the same direction. Towards the ball, let's say. Right. So you have an idea. And in football, it's similar. There's only one ball and there's 22 people on the field. So, you get an idea. But you also have people coming from way different parts of the field, way faster.
Right.
With the goal to hit. At least in baseball, the goal is just to catch and throw the ball.
Right.
And football is to destroy the person that has the ball and anybody in your way that's trying to block you from them.
That's crazy. You're right.
I think football refs is more dangerous.
What about rugby?
Oh shit. We're getting in a whole different level there.
I never watched more than
that. I never watched it, but
it's similar to football. But then I still don't understand the fact that, when the ball goes in the middle and then one guy piles up and then you see a whole pile of fucking people. And then out of nowhere the ball just comes out and then
it's the craziest sport.
I don't know where they're running. Rugby and cricket, no clue. Polo, no idea.
Listen, the most dangerous one, football.
Okay.
All of them are physical, but the most physical one that I believe, it's soccer. They got to run back and forth on that field.
How many
At
reps
least in
soccer?
football, they take a break. They do,
every
they reset.
10 seconds or so.
Right, but in soccer, it's nonstop running.
Yeah, because you have the half is 45, right?
Yeah. So
You have to run the whole 45 minutes,
45 minutes running, bro.
and then you take a break.
Soccer's so boring to me, man.
I
The
don't
only
know.
the only soccer match that I think I watched from beginning to end, aside from Italy versus France, I think in the World Cup. This was
Yeah.
like 2006, around
Yeah,
there
yeah.
or something. Aside from that, was my high school girls soccer championship for the city. They won the city championship, and I think I watched almost the whole thing. Aside from that, bro, soccer kind of bores me, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit boring.
World Cup, I could mess with part of it.
You know what was boring to me before, and now I'm like
Baseball.
super fascinated. Well, baseball, yeah, I have my love and hate relationship with baseball. Golf, bro. Now I'm into golf, and I need to
We
get
send
into.
G
Tournament.
all the videos about golf.
Yo,
We're trying to get into it.
now I'm like, yo, I want
planting
to.
the seeds.
Yep.
SOC, I'm like, I'm gonna be with a baseball
but he has a
swing.
baseball swing.
She's gonna have the virtual thing right here, the virtual drive.
Hey man, listen, you might catch us all at a golf course
Drinking beer on the golf course near you.
wearing Dad's group chat polo logo shirts. That's coming soon, baby. Abel, I appreciate you. Thank you for coming on the podcast. Thank you for all the support outside of the podcast, because you and I talk a lot. AC Shots, I appreciate you. My favorite photographer, baby. Listen, I'm going to tell you something. I appreciate you for all that you've done for the podcast. We also had conversations outside of the podcast, and we have individual relationships. I'm glad I have both of you guys here. I appreciate both of you. Abel, thank you for coming.
Same.
I want to tell the fans, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for listening, either via audio or watching our YouTube. Please subscribe. Please like and comment, and especially please share the content if you like it to others, so we could elevate and move to the next level. Thank you all. Have a great one. Peace.
Peace.
Hey, and by the way, before you end,
Yeah.
don't invite Abel again. Thanks.
You're not invited anymore.